Hey there, fellow Tolkienites, fellow Tolk folk. How we doing out there? So it's been a while since I made any video regarding the Rings of Power, the upcoming Amazon TV show. Um, been thinking about it a lot recently, and I wanted to couch some thoughts in terms of the long defeat. So, for those of you who aren't aware, you probably heard of this term. Many of you have probably heard of this term, but I'm going to read the actual quote that this idea, this Tolkienian idea of the long defeat, comes from. So this is from one of Tolkien's letters. He said, I am a Christian and indeed a Roman Catholic, so that I do not expect history to be anything but a long defeat, though it contains, and in a legend may contain more clearly and movingly, some samples or glimpses of final victory. So in a previous video, which I've linked to in the notes below, I discussed what I hoped would be a path forward for the Legendarium, guided by a Tolkien estate which was unfailingly loyal to J.R.R. Tolkien's established work and vision. It was a pretty optimistic video. I try to keep things hopeful. I try to be optimistic about the Rings of Power. But I have to be honest. For the last several months, I think especially when I heard the news, the thing for me was the flattening of the timeline, right? The compressing of the Second Age timeline. That really just took the took my hope for this show down a great deal. When I heard them just kind of callously, what I would say callously dismiss this idea that, hey, there's 3,000 years of history here to contend with, and just say, yeah, we're just going to compress it. I was just like, no. it, but at the same time, I just felt utterly helpless. So it really took the show down in in I guess my estimation of hopefulness for it, I guess you could say, because I'm like, well, if they're gonna cut such a big corner there, what else are they gonna cut corners with? Um, and I think, my two biggest concerns, kind of just on a broad strategic level, number one is not respecting the legendarium, right? What's been established in the legendarium. And number two, ideological imposition. We live in a time where just like it's like, kind of like Tolkien's time, but we live in an age of just like these like ideologies that are just competing like crazy, right? And just bashing their heads against one another. And I really, like many of you, don't want to see these various ideologies um, finding their way into Middle Earth, right? These different ideas kind of coming in and being like, okay, Tolkien, whatever you thought, but we're gonna have our way with your world, right? Those are the things I want to avoid. I think Amazon has been really trying to like kind of slowly slip in there some of the hints that they are going to impose some ideologies into this world without giving us enough to like really put the finger on it. I think we'll know soon enough whether it's true or not. I'm trying to not let myself get too far ahead of things without knowing too much. I'm trying to be very evidence based. But the other thing is just like it was to me completely disrespectful to the legendarium to compress the timeline like that. Maybe we'll find out it wasn't as egregious as it sounds like it was. I hope that's the case. But right now, it's just like I went from being super enthusiastic about this show to just like kind of slowly, as I thought more and more about that, just saying I, I just don't care that much anymore. Um, but in this video, previously, I was trying to kind of express some hopefulness and be like, okay, is there a way forward for Middle Earth? Could we see future good storytelling? And part of me, I'm a fan, so I want to see more stories told within Middle Earth. And it's like, how do you do that without J.R.R. Tolkien? And I tried to kind of say, look, the Tolkien estate could make this happen if they did it the right way, if they really cared more about guarding what Tolkien has established and about setting very clear parameters within which people can create, about approving things before they come out. These sorts of questions. The Tolkien Estate could make that happen. Um, but as I just kind of thought about it, and I've not only thought about it and seeing what is going on with the Rings of Power, but also just thought about it in terms of Tolkien's quote here of the long defeat, um, and just questions of human nature, and the fact that Christopher is no longer in the picture. I really think that we're facing the long defeat when it comes to safeguarding the stories of the legendarium. And look, some of y'all are going to say I'm gatekeeping, and I just don't care. If you want to say I'm gatekeeping, go right ahead. I'm not trying to keep anybody from enjoying Middle Earth. What I'm trying to say is that to violate what Tolkien established himself, to impose other ideologies onto the work, is wrong. You can accuse me of gatekeeping all day long. I'm proud to keep that gate. I don't think I'll be very good at keeping that gate, but I'm proud to keep that gate. So have at it if you will. Some of you all have already dropped comments to that effect, and I will just say to you, I just don't care. All right. So, I mean, when there's orcs at the gates, what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to just let them in? I mean, come on. It's just I've never understood that comment of gatekeeping. Anyway, moving on. I think I was probably too optimistic, and I think a lot of y'all called me out in that video for being a little too optimistic about how this would work. Um, and it's not to say that I'm not going to be interested in things that happen in the future in terms of, in terms of this world, but I am pretty much convinced that nothing can happen going forward that isn't simply fan fiction at this point, unless we find other writings of Tolkien. I just don't think that there's anybody that Amazon or any other company with the buying power to invest in Tolkien's works, to actually get the rights to make Tolkien's works. I don't think there's anybody who has the kind of money to do that and would want to do it, who is going to care to really go through the nature of Middle Earth and say, oh, here's kind of the metaphysic behind Middle Earth, right? Here are the things going on behind the scenes. Let's really look at how the theology, the philosophy of Thomas Aquinas, and informed Tolkien's worldview, right? Those sorts of questions. I don't really think that people who are running the show on the creation of these things are going to care that much about it. I think I think they're more concerned about pleasing the regnant ideologies, right? And making sure that those ideologies are appeased, and that the keepers of those gates are appeased, right? Of those much more powerful, in modern terms, castles and strongholds, if you will, which I believe are strongholds of Mordor in our own world. But do with that what you will. By the way, and this isn't to cast aspersions on any particular individuals, within the Tolkien estate. I really do just think it's a question of human nature. I don't know that there's anyone calling the shots within the Tolkien estate that both loves and understands the legendarium like Christopher would have. I hope there is, but I think Christopher probably realized this was going to happen too. I talked about this years ago before before Amazon even announced they had bought the rights to do this. That basically the Tolkien estate needed to act while they still had the rights to further develop the show. There's no possibility of just burying it and having no further development of these stories. That won't happen, because at some point the rights go away. There's no legal protection for the copyrights, the trademarks, all these things to this story. At some point they pass into the public domain, and then anybody can do what they will with them. It already happens in other countries, right? So at some point somebody was going to make these other stories. So I think all this wraps up in just kind of saying look, the long defeat applies, right? History is nothing but a long defeat. Now, you have to notice about that quote from Tolkien that it is not an ultimately pessimistic outlook, right? What is the complete quote? The long defeat, right? History is a long defeat, though it contains some samples or glimpses of final victory. Tolkien was, of course, a believer in the final victory, right? He was a believer in the happy ending, okay? For our actual history. Why? Because he was a Christian and a Roman Catholic, right? He says it right there. It's all contained in that one sentence right there. Okay? The long defeat is not ultimately simply a pessimistic thing. It is pessimistic in historical terms as we live through the history working itself out. And I think we see that in all aspects. I think it applies to all aspects of human history. Okay? But ultimately, the long defeat recognizes the final victory that is foreshadowed, right, in the resurrection of Christ. All right, the Christian hope. Because in the end, the final victory is the resurrection of all, right? That all share in this resurrection of Christ, that all evil is put down, that all wrongs are redressed, and that we all live happily ever after, right? That's the whole idea of the fairy story. So, yeah, I mean, I'm bummed that the Rings of Power, I don't foresee it being more respectful of the Legendarium, but I'm not going to let myself get overly down about it. I'm gonna gatekeep, and I'm gonna make some of y'all mad by doing that. But if I see orcs at the gate, I'm gonna gatekeep, and I think that's the way it should be. So, at the same time, I'm going to enjoy what I can of the Rings of Power. I'm going to enjoy what I can of whatever comes afterward. I'm going to hope that people learn lessons in the short term that yield fruits for further, further depictions of Tolkien on screen. And I'm going to hold out hope that there can be better adaptations that happen in the future as well. So, kind of a rambling video here. If you're still watching, I appreciate it. I hope you'll leave your own thoughts on these topics in the comments below. I just, I've been wrestling with so many of these different questions, and I just wanted to share some thoughts with you guys and see what you had to say about all of this. So, hope you liked this video. If you do, please hit that like button. Please subscribe to this channel. Definitely going to be sharing some more thoughts, and just trying to view all of what's happening in the world of Tolkien fandom through the lens of Tolkien's own thoughts, right? That's what I really thought was interesting about this one, was just this applying this idea of the long defeat to what we're seeing with the Rings of Power right now. So, hopefully this has been beneficial to you. Hopefully, while my message may be a little pessimistic, hopefully you're able to find the same hope in all of this that Tolkien found, that Tolkien always held, right? Which was in that ultimate happy ending, right? That somehow all things will work themselves out for the better. And that's hard to hold on to in this world. But at the end of the day, that's one of the most important things that draws me to Tolkien, one of the biggest things that draws me to Tolkien. So anyways, hope you guys have a great day, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.